Chapter 1 Residential Housing of Residential Real Estate Transaction. Uh, Residential real estate offers many choices by way of both ownership and rental arrangements. Traditional emphasis is on bungalows split in two stories, and in the modern, it's also include condos. So, going with this single family homes, um, what are the residential choices? So there is the notion of a single family home or a single dwelling unit, or also there's a notion of a multi-family dwelling unit which has up to 4 units. So let's first start with the single family homes. There are various configurations available for the single family home, like single family detached, which is a single family home, which is it's an independent one, and it's just comprises of one dwelling unit. Duplex dwelling is the one that is divided horizontally or vertically into two attached dwelling units on a single lot, each of which has a private entrance and is accessible directly from a common vestibule. A linked um, dwelling involves two or more buildings, each consisting of not more than one dwelling unit each, attached attached below grade by concrete wall. So the key here is the two dwelling units or the two buildings are attached below grade by concrete wall. Height or thickness of wall specifications are typically set by the zoning bylaws. The fourth type is semi-detached, which involves two attached dwelling units on separately deeded lots that are divided vertically above grade by way of a party wall. A street townhouse involves one or more than two attached dwelling units that are divided vertically above grade by party walls. So again, zoning bylaws and Ontario Building Code requirements apply. A CC private road townhouse is a street townhouse involving one or more than two attached dwelling units that are divided vertically. However, this townhouse has a frontage on a private road. So that's the difference between a street townhouse versus a CC private road townhouse. Uh, triplex triplex dwelling is a building that is divided either vertically or horizontally into three dwelling units. A fourplex dwelling is a building that is divided either horizontally or vertically into four separate dwelling units. Anything more than four is not going to be covered here. So because anything more than four goes is can be viewed as a commercial in nature. So the housing unit which are considered residential would be limited to 4 units only. Residential zoning restrictions. With municipalities, detached dwellings are divided into three or more categories like R1, R2, and R3. Each category is then set in relation to specific zoning regulations such as setbacks and coverages. The successive zoning classification provides for increasingly higher densities, which means R1 is the single family residential, which has the lowest density, followed by R2, which has a higher it has higher density, followed by R3 and R4. So for, in case of residential zoning restrictions R1, R2, and R3, and R4, there is the minimum lot area requirement. For R1 is like 750 square meters, R2 is 695 square meters, R3 is 550 square meters, and R4 is 365 square meters. As you can see, as we go towards R4, the requirement for the lot decreases, which means the density increases. The same for the minimum lot frontage. As we go towards R4, the lot frontage decreases, which implies that the density is increasing. Similarly, there's a requirement for the minimum front yard, and there's also a requirement for the minimum lot coverage. So the lot coverage uh, goes from 25% in R1 all the way to 40% in R4. Drafting zoning clauses. While drafting an agreement, the pre-printed clause 8, title search and agreement of purchase in the agreement purchase and sale, includes a reference to the fact that the present use of the property can be continued. As a reminder, registrants may insert the current use, that is single family residential, but do not refer to the specific zoning, whether it's R1, R2, R3, R4. So it's important that we keep the present use to refer to only saying that it's single family use and do not refer to a specific zoning. Now, if the registrant chooses to leave it blank, then that means that its present use can be lawfully continued. If the intended for further use is other than the specified under clause 8, a condition is typically inserted to protect the buyer. That's the buyer seeking to expand use beyond the current family of two or more self-contained residential unit or a commercial conversion. So the conditional wording would typically focus on the buyer obtaining rezoning or confirming that the present zoning would accommodate the intended purpose. So the so in the case of condition regarding rezoning, a buyer is submitting an offer and wants to rezone the property from R1 to RM1, which is single family residential R1 to multifamily RM1. Um, then he needs to insert a clause saying that this offer is contingent upon the buyer obtaining at the buyer's expense a rezoning of the property to permit, let's say RM1 for the said property. Both buyer and seller agree to proceed in a diligent manner to obtain the rezoning unless the buyer gives notice in writing delivered to the seller personally or in accordance with any other provisions for the delivery of notice in this agreement, the purchase and sale or any schedule thereto, not later than let's say 6 p.m. on the second day of August 2015, that this condition has been fulfilled. This offer shall become null and void, and deposit shall be returned to the buyer in full without any deduction. The second condition, uh, that the second scenario that can happen while uh, drafting agreement of purchase and sale would be warranty regarding rezoning. So a buyer maybe is submitting an offer and wants assurance that the land is zoned as stated. In which case, the clause will read as the seller warrants that the land is zoned as whatever under the bylaw for the municipality of whatever the municipality is. For a multi-family family dwelling up to 4 units, multifamily is commonly used term referring to more than one dwelling unit on a specific property, triplex, fourplex, or some townhouses. Residential uh, zoning restrictions. Residential zoning for the multifamily RM provides different requirements. For example, in the case of RM1, the minimum lot area is 340 square meters, and for RM2, it is 200 square meters. So as we go from RM1 to RM2, the density increases. Now let's move on to the next item. Or again, there's this important aspect to be considered here with regards to construction. Smaller multifamily units, as with all new construction, are subject to Ontario Building Code. The code has been addressed in has mentions that the specifically Part 9 of the Ontario Building Code is for smaller residential unit, 3 stories or under. And for multi-family tenancies, they must adhere to the residential rental requirements as set out in the Residential Tenancy Act. The agreement of purchase and sale can be used for smaller residential buildings up to 4 units. Clause 2 provides for other than vacant possession. Upon completion, vacant possession of the property shall be given to the buyer unless otherwise provided. in for the agreement. Drafting tenancy clauses. In case of home-based business now represents a significant part of the overall economy. The combination of residential and business usage not only advanced more efficiently inland, but has proven very effective for various reasons. Home businesses have gained widespread popularity as efficient business units, given lower fixed costs in relation to the commercial office space. Further, business owners point to the time and cost saved by not commuting to and from work, and that the ability to be at home for family, minimize childcare expenses, and generally be more independent in setting priority and time scheduling for your career. Zoning provisions. Home-based businesses are allowed in both residential, detached, as well as multi-dwelling units. Municipalities are generally concerned that the business does not interrupt or detract from the overall residential environment in which it is situated. So there's a typical requirement that the zoning will allow maximum floor area, let's say 25% of the dwelling units, no outside storage of business related equipment, the deliveries to be limited to courier and related services, no large trucks, no exterior alteration, a limited number of business visitors to the home, no signage, and the number of employees limited to those persons who are permanent residents in the dwelling units. In some municipalities, the bylaw may provide for one or two non-resident to be permitted to operate from the residential location. The typical provisions are highlighted for illustration purposes only. Um, there can be special rules. Municipalities may enact rules pertaining to health professionals, allowing them to operate an office within the detached home, along with appropriate provisions for such things as signage, separate entrance, and parking facilities. Municipalities may set out various enterprises that cannot be operated as a home-based business. These would include certain activities that are that would not be consistent with the residential area, such as manufacturing or repair or fabrication or and food preparation. Insurance. Individual contemplating a home-based business should check with their insurance broker regarding the necessary coverage. The typical homeowner policy does not normally cover for such things as business equipments and related improvements to the property, business related supplies and inventory, personal injuries for facilities sustained by client customers, employees, suppliers, and maintenance people. Next is the taxation. Selected business uh, deductions for home offices are permitted by Canada Revenue Agency, including occupancy expense based on the portion of the total square footage within the residence used exclusively for business purposes. Business licensing. Certain businesses operating within a municipality will allow business license. New perspective from the residential housing, the need for intensification. So, moving to the next item of the new perspective from the residential housing, the need for intensification, which is also referred to as place to grow legislation. Intensification is a term coined in the urban planning and government circles involving expanded use of building and the service land to provide additional housing stocks and more effectively utilize existing municipal services as opposed to the creation of new housing stock to the outlying subdivision development. Intensification has various dimensions, including decreased use of existing housing stock through additional dwelling units. Essentially, this planning approach seeks to increase density through the effective urban redevelopment. Intensification has traditionally been identified with addition second unit accessory apartments in houses. However, the concept goes further in the advocacy of creative housing options, including uh, mixed use development along with RTL road within urban centers and redevelopment of existing industrial land for residential purposes. Current government policies include major intensification initiative. These policies will help to revitalize neighborhood and downtown areas, make more efficient use of existing infrastructure, reduce pressure on remaining agriculture land, and provide a wider variety of housing choices. Urban infills refers to any project that creates new housing within an existing established neighborhood. Infills could include the demolition of detached dwellings with its replacement being two semi-detached units, the construction of townhouses where one or more single-family homes previously existed, the building of additional housing units on existing vacant lands, or major addition or renovations to existing housing stocks. Build forms and the planning process. Build form refers to the height, shape, appearance, and an internal configuration or the design of existing structures within a particular area. Municipalities, in reviewing existing densities, property uses, and zoning requirement, take build form into consideration as a part of official planning review process. Build form shapes our impression of a city, the neighborhood, or specific development. At the development level, the build form is a significant factor in creating spatial relationship between buildings and people, including parklands, street design, and the and the community amenities. So essentially, build form refers to the height, shape, appearance, and internal configuration or design of existing structures within a particular area. Gated communities. A gated community is enclosed residential development where they control access points for cars, pedestrians, and others. The community is typically surrounded by fences or other barricades or barriers. Gated community have proven very popular in the United States as well as other countries in Europe and South America. Interestingly, the recent surge in the gated community development has occurred in the Orient, particularly in the developing part of China. The gated development has not widely been accepted into within the Ontario marketplace. As of August 2023, the University of Dalhousie in Nova Scotia documented 241 gated developments in Canada, which is approximately 50% of Ontario, with approximately 50% in Ontario. So, gated community vary based on the local planning and regulatory requirements. As an overview, given that very a few Ontario gated community exists, descriptive material is included regarding a typical larger US gated community. Canadian and Ontario gated communities are addressed later. The gated community in the US are typically created through a phased condominium project. That is, the development is built in successive stages with each phase consisting of separate condominium. Several housing types are normally found within such communities, including detached, semi-detached, townhomes, garden homes, villas, low-rise, and high-rise. Similar housing types are usually grouped as neighborhoods and generally align with the separate condominium phases within the overall project. Master association. Every owner within a gated community must be a member of the master association and pay applicable fees. The master community association owns and operates the common roadways, parking improvements, and other common areas which are used by all owners in the condominium phases. So so basically, a master association is for every owner in the gated community, and they are required to be a member and pay applicable fees. Individual communities are established which represent groups of units designated as a separate neighborhood. These neighborhoods may align with the original condominium phases, but need not. Each neighborhood has a neighborhood association that delivers selected benefits not performed by the master association. Common versus private amenities. Gated communities can be owned, managed by a master association, a neighborhood association, or a private enterprise. Typical amenities include golf courses and associated golf clubhouses. In the case of Canadian experience, um, the Canadian planning community has not been very receptive to the gated communities. Opponents point out that such large development create a elitism for those inside the walls, adversely impact the sense of sustainable communities that planners have so avidly pursued in the development, planners involved with new housing developments as well as intensification and projects emphasize the need for community integration rather than exclusionary, inward-looking, and distinct development. In the case of Ontario, gated communities are found scattered within the province. No formal study work has been completed, but research involving various municipalities revealed patchwork approach with little overall consistency. For example, condominium in suburban Toronto, this development consists of approximately 600 primary low-density condominium units. 9 different condominiums are registered, similar to the overall, are registered within the overall community with a coordinating committee, similar to the U.S. Master Association concept, including representatives from each of the 9 registered condominium. Urban land lease community. There is one in southern Ontario, which is a privately owned land lease community consisting of approximately 400 uh, housing units, appealing to 50 plus empty nesters. Similarly, there is urban land lease community in west of Toronto, which is a 492 unit land lease community consisting of single family detached home and townhomes. Mature adult residences. Adult retirement lifestyle communities are found throughout the province. In the past 3 decades, the market has grown from a small gated land lease community to a wide range of freehold condominium and tenancy tenancy development with a variety of housing styles and amenities that appeal to golfers, skiers, boaters, nature lovers, and host of other leisure pursuits. So the choices that a mature adult has would be to remain in the existing home, purchase a condominium, buy or rent in the retirement community, choose to live in the retirement residence, or go to the long term care. So if the person chooses to remain in the existing home, the we could also look at the concept of flex flex housing, which essentially means that 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 there's a flexibility in the housing to changing family and generational need. It is introduced by Canadian Mortgage and Housing Corporation. Purchasing a condominium is another option, which essentially means that the mature adult would move into a condominium and avoid many maintenance demands found in the single family homes, while enjoying added security, organized social services, and social activities and other amenities. Buy or rent in the retirement communities. So, which means the mature adult could select a community specifically designed to meet the needs of mature adults or seniors. Many variations exist, including land lease communities, life lease housing options, condominium, and freehold ownership. Or choose to live in a retirement residence, select a retirement residence and rent a suite that best suits individual circumstances. Or go to long-term care, which selects a private retirement residence that offers long-term care, or be approved for a long-term facility overseen by the government. Existing house mature. Um, so the to recap, the options are to remain in the existing home, purchase a condominium, buy or rent in the retirement community, choose to live in the retirement residence, or long-term care. So with regards to the long-term care, there's a care home legislation, which essentially means that so various matters concerning the operation of a care homes fall under the provision of a Residential Tenancy Act. A care home is generally described as a residential complex in which the resident receive care services including health, therapeutic, and rehabilitation services that assist with the daily living activities. The regulation sets out the range of such services as a guideline, including nursing care assistance with bathing, feeding, dressing, ambulatory and personal hygiene assistance, and personal emergency response services. Residents do not commonly encounter situations involving care homes. Certain key provisions, however, should be reviewed. A written tenancy agreement involving the care home must be provided, setting out care services and meals, including the related costs. Every tenancy agreement must have a statement outlining the prospective tenant has the right to seek a third-party advice and can cancel the agreement within 5 days after the agreement has been entered into. The Residential Tenancy Act contemplates that the landlord may have both care-related as well as non-care-related tenancies within the same residential complex. In such instances, the former are referred to as a care-attached unit and fall under the provision set out for the care homes. Also, to note that the long-term care facility, they provide accommodation care services and programs in accordance with the legislation and policies stand on Ministry of Health and Long-Term Care. Admission to a long-term care facility must be authorized by a placement coordinator pursuant to the Nursing Home Act. Life lease communities. Life lease communities allow residents to purchase right to occupy a unit during the life of that occupant. Note that the life lease community agreement are governed by the contract law and also by the common law, but not by the Condominium Act or Residential Tenancy Act. Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing provides a leading role. The structure and characteristics of a life lease communities. Life lease communities are typically developed by not-for-profit um, service clubs, religious organizations, and ethnic communities. Most life lease communities are market price based. The occupant pays the full market price at the time of occupancy. A deposit is required at the time of signing the life lease agreement. In the case of new construction, the occupant usually pays a reservation fee, that is a deposit, and then is required to make advances as the construction proceeds. Note that the life lease communities are not covered under the TDN new home warranty coverage. So note there is no deposit protection. Occupant may also have to pay a monthly fees. The termination of a life lease community um, involves the unit relisted for occupation. There will be 5 to 10% resale fees plus in addition to the real estate commission. Land lease land lease communities. So land lease communities have become popular for mature adults. Lease terms vary from 20 to 99 years. Historically, manufactured home predominated in the last land lease communities, but in recent years, modular homes and on-site built homes are also frequently found. Some land lease communities have also integrated condominium projects within the overall development, and as mentioned earlier, some land lease communities are gated. Residents are responsible for various services relating to the community, including snow removal, lawn care, maintenance of irrigation system, and so forth. The community may include amenities such as clubhouse and residential facilities, nature walkways, and parklands. With regards to the legislative requirements, the legislative requirements concerning mobile home parks or land lease communities are set out in the Residential Tenancies Act. A land lease home is a permanent structure as opposed to the mobile home. A land lease community usually has sites that are rented by tenants who own the home on site. The act applies to land lease home site unless it's used by travelers or persons on vacation. A mobile home park may have a mix of dwelling built without wheels or trailers built on with wheels on site that are allowed under the act. The act may apply whether the site is used permanently or seasonally. However, the act does not apply to a site that is intended for use by a person who is traveling or on vacation. or in a resort, tourist campground, or the trailer park that is occupied only for a seasonal or temporary period. Rights and responsibilities. Registrants are increasingly involved with mobile and land lease homes as a consequence of aging Canadian population and certain pricing advantages associated with land lease. Legislative requirements, legislative requirements from the Residential Tenancy Act of a particular or of particular interest to real estate registrants are highlighted. Landlord responsibility, keeping the landless community in good repair is a landlord responsibility, making health, safety, and maintenance standards, providing means of garbage disposal, keeping the water supply, sewage disposal, fuel drainage, and electrical system in good repair. These are all the landlord responsibility. Keeping the premises clean, repairing any damage caused by them or their guests is the tenant responsibility. Uh, a tenant has a right to sell or lease a mobile home or land lease home without the landlord's consent. An agreement that requires a tenant to be used as a landlord is void. Um, the tenants in selling his or her mobile home or land lease home may place a sign on the window of the home unless prohibited by landlord. The landlord can only permit such signage if all of the following conditions are met, which means that the landlord prohibition regarding the sign applies to all tenants. The landlord provides a bulletin board for placement of for sale advertisement, and the bulletin board is provided to all tenants free of charge and is located in a prominent place accessible to public at all times. If the if the tenancy agreement provides that provides the landlord with the right of first refusal, if the tenancy agreement provides the landlord with the right of first refusal when the tenant is selling his or her home, his or her land lease home, the landlord is given for 72 hours from the time that the seller receives an acceptable offer from the buyer to purchase the land lease home on the same price and conditions. If the landlord does not agree, that the tenant can proceed to sell to the initial buyer. So landlord does have a first right of refusal. Drafting and purchase of agreement and sale. A unique agreement of purchase and sale is required for mobile, modular, and manufactured home. So the ODA form 110 is used for that. There is a provision regarding rules and regulations. Essentially, the buyer agrees to accept and comply with any rules of the community, and a written copy is given to each tenant. There also a provision concerning the lease agreement. The agreement also provides that the lease document is attached in Schedule B, and that the seller agrees to assign seller's interest in the lease to the buyer. Further, the agreement states that if the agreement includes the required consent of the landlord, the seller agrees to apply immediately for such a consent. The agreement is null and void if such consent is not received. The next item is a factory built housing. Um, so the factory built housing can include like modular or manufactured home, but a growing component of but it's becoming a growing component of the overall Canadian housing marketplace. Offsite assembly of factory built homes is gaining increasing acceptance. Um, the image of factory built homes in the customer mind has been a challenge. Many Ontario residents still associate prefabricated construction with 10 to 12 feet wide mobile homes transported to their destination behind trucks with oversized load sign flags and escort cars. However, today's factory built homes have come a long way from those early beginnings. Factories now produce everything from a large, fully completed two-storied house on near site subdivision located to a large custom-built design home manufactured partially on the factory floor and then erected in modular fashion on a permanent foundation. The near-site factory warrants particular emphasis. Two recent Matme home developments in Cambridge and Milton involved complete house being built near the subdivision and then transported and placed on poured basements. Homes proceed through the assembly line process involving various workstation The homes, complete with all the mechanical system and interior finishes, are then transported by specially designed transport vehicles and delivered for placement on the basement, with only the exterior finish approaches and landscaping to be added following installation. Type of active in homes: they're modular homes, there's the manufactured homes. For the construction, CAD is used. That the advantage is the climate control environment, greater precision, straightness, no interior damage from the weather. The next section is about cooperative housing. Cooperative housing are generally described as ownership options. So cooperatives in Ontario can either be an equity cooperative with share capital or a non-profit cooperative without the share capital. The Cooperative Corporation Act is used here, and the regulator is the Financial Services Commission of Ontario, which is an arm length agency under the Ministry of Finance. The registration under Section 456 of Cooperative Corporation Act, details registration requirements. The procedure for real estate cooperative requires that a specific number of individuals file the article of incorporation and other prescribed documents and pay required fees to FSC. FSC then issues certificate of incorporation. Detailed registration procedures, filing and record keeping requirements and information concerning offering statements can be obtained from the credit union and cooperative branch. There are like various type of cooperatives: service cooperatives, consumer cooperatives, supply cooperatives, worker cooperatives, and so on. Agreement of purchase or sale cannot be used in the acquisition of equity cooperative. Instead, a separate agreement of purchase and sale for cooperative building resale agreement F102 is used, which includes a share in the corporation and also an occupancy agreement. No interest in the land is transferred, but still land transfer tax applies. And also, in terms of co-ownership, involves ownership of a property as tenants in common. For example, 10 owners occupy 5 weeks each, and which means they're 50 weeks and 2 weeks are for maintenance. Timeshare, timeshare is also evolving. There are like a few options with the timeshare. There can be fee ownership interest, the right to use interest, and they also a Consumer Protection Act for the timeshare. That's all I have for the Chapter 1 residential housing. Thanks.